What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's daily market recap. In today's episode, I'm going to break down my trades from the morning. Now, if you watched yesterday's recap, you know that yesterday set a record. It was the slowest day of the year. I took one trade, I made $220, and I was like, wow, this isn't going nowhere. And I said, I don't even have enough money to buy lunch. And some of you guys were like, where are you getting lunch? And I said, well, how much is a bottle of champagne? Like $500? There's not even lunch. It's not even enough to get a drink. Now, truth be told, I'm not a big drinker and I'm also not a fancy person. So I was making a joke about $200 not being enough to buy lunch. What did I have for lunch yesterday? You know what? Actually, come to think of it, I think I skipped lunch, which was appropriate because I really didn't make a lot of money. But nonetheless, so let's break it down today. Now, today, I'm sitting at $22,162.03. Not bad. All right, so we got a little bit of momentum this morning, and this is great. Monday, we got some good action. Tuesday, totally dead. Wednesday, all right, back in the saddle. Thursday, probably gonna be dead. So we're in like a hot, cold market. That's okay, I can work with that. Really, as long as I get a few solid trades each week, I'm doing great. I'm not gonna complain. So here we go, $22,000 on the day, traded 3 stocks, green on all 3. In fact, you know, I might have had a couple of like break-even trades today, but unfortunately, I didn't have any big losing trades today. I was able to avoid that. So I'm grateful for that. Okay, so let's go back to the very first trade of the day. I'm gonna walk you through the stocks I did trade. I'm also gonna share with you some of the stocks I chose not to trade so you can better understand my perspective on that. All right, so TGL, we'll look at this one first. TGL, man, this stock has been just so choppy this morning. So let's go ahead and zoom in here on the 10-second chart. So, or the 1-minute chart. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a little pop quiz. Are you ready for it? Okay, pop quiz. We've got a stock here, TGL. It is currently our leading percentage gainer on the day. It's pulled back right here, popped up. Pulled back right here, popped up. Pulled back right here and popped up. So as it's dipping down right here, should I be buying in this area for a squeeze through the high? What's the answer? Yes or no? Now, some of you might say yes. Look, pull back, pull back, pull back. It keeps working. But I would say a couple things. Number one, first pullback, I like it. Second one, I like it. Third pullback, we're getting a little extended. Fourth pullback, how many times do you want to keep going back to the well? And now let's take a step back and actually go and zoom out. And let me show you what really stopped me from taking that trade. An ascending resistance line that came in right about there. So I said, no, see, this is not going to work because it just came up to resistance. So I said, I'm not going to buy it right here. And that was 100% the right move. So sometimes you got to zoom out to see the bigger picture. So in this case, yes, the MACD was open. We had decent volume, but we were running into resistance. And that's something you wouldn't have seen just looking at these candlesticks just over the last 5 minutes. You had to zoom out a little bit to see it. So that's TGL. So I did not take a trade on it coming into 7 a.m. And that was actually a little bit earlier. But nonetheless, by 7 a.m., this thing was dipping back down. And you know what's really interesting? Right here at about 7 a.m., we were pulling back. We were sort of, consolidating right around the volume weighted average price. And then right at about 6:59, it tanks. Why did it tank there? You know why? Because there was a more attractive stock that came into play. And so everyone abandoned TGL for what? SBEV. Now, by the way, both SBEV and TGL were active after hours yesterday. This was SBEV, squeezed up after hours. This was TGL, squeezed up after hours. So SBEV and TGL were sort of, going like head to head on which one was going to be the obvious gap or going into the open. And so then right here, all of a sudden, coming into 7 a.m., this thing rips. So where did I buy it? Well, I'll be honest, this would have been a fantastic place to be a buyer, but I didn't get in there. In fact, I didn't quite see it in that moment. I was watching TGL. That was the leader in terms of percentage gain at that moment. And so I wasn't quite paying attention to SBEV. However, I did recognize that maybe there was some ascending resistance from yesterday's high kind of in through this area. And so in fact, this did have resistance right under that level, but it was able to break. And I think it was able to break because coming into 7 a.m., there was volume coming in. It was not too extended coming into this level. You know, it sort of popped up, pulled back, and then it was sort of at the beginning of its breakout. And so at the right time, it was just able to push through. So where did I take my first trade? It pops up here to 390, and then it pops up to 4. And what I ended up doing was I bought basically right in here, pretty much right at 7 a.m., as it was coming up to $4. So I got in there 4,000 share blocks. So I do one order of 4. I do a second order. Now I've got 8,000 shares. I do a third order. Now I've got 12,000. It starts to pull away. I do 2 more orders. I go up to 16,000. I go up to 20,000. I'm like, all right, here we go. This looks good. And I didn't add until I was already in the green. On this candle right here, it squeezes all the way up to $4.90. Fantastic. Boom. $12,043.79 in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That's it. Well, 3 minutes. So it was probably 2 minutes. It was a very quick trade right here, getting in around 4 average, 405 average, maybe 415 as I scaled in, and then taking profit up into this candle. Now it ends up pulling back, dipping down off of 4, bouncing back up, dipping down again. And when it comes back up here, unfortunately, what I didn't like was this topping tail, that topping tail. And then we got another one right here and another one right here. And so once again, we've got to draw that descending resistance line, right? So now you've got descending resistance, and look at that. It comes back right to it right there. Now, if you're not good at drawing the resistance lines in the right place, I'm going to put a link at the end of today's recap to a full-length training on technical analysis that you should check out. So that is for the end of this episode. And what I'll do right now is I'll actually put a link. I'll put it to the top comments, and I'll link it in the description where you can download my 110-page technical analysis guide. It's a PDF worksheet that you can download, you can print it out, you can use it in your own trading, and it's going to help you get better at drawing these lines the right way, because it's clearly important, right? We need to be able to see these levels on our chart. They are valid. Okay, so after that trade on SBEV, you know, I was up 12,000 on the day. I was like, sweet, that was a nice cushion. So then I'm sitting tight. Next trade, RDHL. Where did RDHL come from? RDHL popped up on the scanners right here, and I jumped in at about 280. I got out at about 315. I only did 2,000 shares, and I made $300. I only did got 15 cents a share on it. It was a smaller trade. It was lighter volume. I wasn't sure it was going to work, so I just jumped in, jumped out. All right, so that was basically not much to say there. So kind of a small trade. And then BCTX comes up on the scanners. Now, BCTX was really interesting. This stock pops up on our scans, biotech stock with news, pops up here, it dips down, and then it curls back up right there. So now let's get on the 10-second chart so I can get really zoomed in on this trade. So I'm going to back this up, zoom in right here. So what you'll notice is that this initially popped up to 530, it dips down, and when it came back up right here, it does this little pattern. So let me give you a little pop quiz. All right, so let's see, let's get this, wait for that line to fade. All right, pop quiz. We've got a stock here, biotech stock with news. It just came out, the news headline. It squeezes up, and then it gives back basically the whole move. Pretty high volume selling too. Not sure I like it. It rallies back up here all the way to this level. So what do we do with this? We call this a cup and a handle formation. So the cup is formed by the peak and then the second attempt back up. The handle is the brief consolidation holding more or less this level. The entry is the break through this high right here. First target is a squeeze through the all-time high of day and then looking for an extension higher. As long as there's no resistance on the daily chart, what ends up happening? We break that level, we pop up to about $5.60. Not bad. From $5 to $5.60, that's 10% in one little candle right there. It ends up pulling back and grinding a little bit higher. This area is not as easy to trade. There's not a clear entry. This is just taking profit from the entry right there. It ends up dipping down, and then it's going to curl back up a second time, giving us these kind of big, extreme waves. The nice thing about those big waves is that they can provide the opportunity to make some good money. $9,818.21 for me on this stock this morning. So because it's got big range going up and down 50 cents a share, I can get some decent trades on it. So I got a decent trade there on that first wave. We got another trade on the second wave. But then when it wasn't able to break over the high of 580, That's when I said, yeah, see, I don't know if this is going to work anymore. So that was BCTX, almost $10,000 on that. That puts me up 22,000 on the day. And then I'm sitting and kind of waiting. So as I'm waiting, TGL ends up coming out with news, a second headline around, it was like 9:15 a.m. Yeah, 9:15. Exclusive rights to launch a $40 billion coupon platform in Malaysia. So I don't know. I saw the headline. I wasn't sure. But once again, look at this. This is a day of ascending resistance and descending resistance. I mean, these lines are just so valid. You can see them without drawing the trend line. But, you draw it, it's even more clear. So I didn't take a trade on that. And the thing is, this is a stock, by the way, that has a pretty well-established history of popping and dropping. I'll turn off the 200 moving average. Look at these candles. This is what this stock does. Now, today it's got 80 million shares of volume, which is far higher than some of these other days. So it had a lot of volume, a lot of liquidity. You certainly could have gotten in and out with no problem with big size, but this just wasn't something that I could trust. So no trades on TGL. DXF, this one at the open has squeezed up a little bit, thinly traded, bigger spreads. It's halted down a couple times, gave people a few fake outs. It's just not clear to me what the catalyst is. So Chinese company popping up, I'm leaving it alone. I don't trust it. ICAD, that's a buyout. So that's mostly trading sideways. Cheaper stocks. TGL, we already looked at that. STBX, this one popped and dropped yesterday, kind of did the same thing today, not really holding up super well. Now let's look at the S&P 500. Overall market, we're kind of hanging out here. Obviously, this still feels a little weak under the 200 moving average, just that's the position, but it could be worse. So, for right now, we're just kind of, it's kind of touch and go a little bit. We're so... everyone's got the kind of their ear to the ground when it comes to economic news, especially with the tariffs. So that's just what we're dealing with right now. But I think, the market is, I think, optimistic that the tariffs will be resolved with most countries, not including China, and that at least if we're in good standing with most of the world, then it's kind of like everyone else against China and not the US against everyone, which is sort of how it was looking when the tariffs were first announced. So the sentiment has changed a bit, but at the same time, it could shift again very quickly. So this is where we're at right now, and I'm grateful to be locking up another green day. I'm sitting right now in good shape on the month. It's like I said, yesterday didn't serve to improve the month in any significant way. $200, but what it did help with was, I suppose, accuracy, because yesterday I just had one trade and it was a winner. So yesterday I traded with 100% accuracy. Month to date, I'm at $216,000. Today, another 22,000. So 26, 36, 38. So 238. That's great. Accuracy, 76.9%. And I think today it's probably in at least 80%. So it might even push a little higher when we look at this tomorrow. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Average daily gain, 19,000. And, that's in spite of the fact that a lot of people would say, we're in a tricky market. It's not a bear market exactly, although we did dip down technically to a full-fledged bear market when we were down 20% off the highs. So we were in a correction when we were down just 10%, but, we pulled back a little bit more than that. So right now, the overall market, S&P, let's just measure it. So from the peak, we're sitting down about 13% off the high. 10% is a correction, 20% is a bear market. So we did dip into bear market territory at 21% on the low there on the daily chart, but we're sort of back in correction territory now. So the typical bear market recovers in 3 months. The typical correction recovers in about 3 months. The typical bear market takes about 9 months to recover. So, this is sort of where we're at right now. A little bit of uncertainty, but there's volatility. And as active traders, that's what we like. So if you want to learn more about how to start trading, I'll put a link to my full-length training on technical analysis right there. Make sure you download my technical analysis worksheet. A reminder, as always, trading is risky. My results aren't typical, so please manage your risk and always practice in a simulator before putting real money on the line. I'll see you for the next episode tomorrow afternoon.